Hi everyone, it's Miss Naima again. So welcome back to another class text video for this term from your new Stone Age chapter book of Stig of the Dump by Clive King. So let's get reading again and please follow the lines along with me so you know what page I am at. Okay, so we were on page 23 last time and we are on this line over here. So he couldn't have made one, but he must have landed somewhere. And he had that clear picture in his head of looking up through a hole at the side of the cliff and the clouds passing over the sky. And suddenly, as he stood in the middle of the paddock, he gave a big jump as the answer came to him like getting a sum right. If there wasn't a hole, it was because somebody had mended it. Stig wasn't the sort of person to leave a large hole in his roof for long. Not his friend Stig. All at once, everything fitted together. Yesterday's adventure on that Stiggish sort of afternoon, the bump on his head, the flint, and this bright autumn morning when he was going to visit his friend Stig. And he was quite clear in his head now what he was going to do and how he was going to do it. He set off running back to the garden, presents for Stig. When you visit people this time of year, you always brought something from the garden. Tomatoes you couldn't bottle or apples you hadn't room to store. He looked round the big old apple tree for windfalls. There were some big ones, difficult to manage without a basket, but he stuffed them into his shirt, making sure there weren't any gasps in them first. What else? He saw a line of carrots, his favorite fruit. He was allowed to pull up carrots, they were good for his teeth. So he heaved up a few good-sized ones and rubbed the earth off with his fingers. Then he had an idea and ran to the tool shed where he found a ball of garden string. It was all right just to borrow it. Back he ran again, across the garden, over the fence, across the paddock, over into the copse, and through the brambles and dead leaves to the edge of the pit. He sat himself comfortably on the trunk of the tree that curved out over the pit like the neck of a camel, and looked carefully again at what he could see. There was the broken edge of the cliff. They were the trailing creepers. There at the bottom were the scattered lumps of chalk that had come down with him. And now that he was really looking at it, he could see a piece of new linoleum. Well, not exactly new. Nothing in the dump was new, but it looked as if it had been put there not long ago, because it wasn't covered with moss like things that had been there for a long time. So have a read at this word. So what do you think what linoleum means? So have a guess, or if you want, you can search this word up for me and put it on tapestry. Linoleum. And he could see at one side of this pile of branches and things that were sticks leaned to roof, a faint path in the bottom of the pit that led to the front of the den. He found the end of the ball of string and tied the bunch of carrots to it. Then he began to pay out the string, with the carrots dangling on the end, towards the bottom of the pit. He hoped it was long enough. There always seems to be miles of string in a ball, but it dwindled and dwindled as he lowered the carrots down, until he was afraid that it wouldn't reach the bottom. Bother! A cobble, a regular spider's nest of tangled string, appeared and he had to stop to uncobble it. At last, with a few feet in his hand, the carrots were swinging on a level with Stig's front door. Barney's seat was not quite above it, so he had to go get the carrots swinging to and from, all that way beneath him, until they were actually knocking at the door like 5 pink fingers. Barney was bubbling so much with laughter inside him at the trick he was playing on Stig that he forgot to be dizzy. Stig, he called down the pit. Morning, Stig. I'm knocking at your front door, and suddenly, out from the stack of branches, appeared the tousled head of Stig, and stayed there, wagging to and fro, following the swinging carrots like a cat watching a pendulum. What do you think a pendulum means? So search this word up if you don't know the meaning of it, and let me know on tapestry. So what do you think a pendulum is? Barney nearly fell off the tree with laughing. Hello, Stig, he called. Good morning. I'm Barney, you remember? How are you? Stig looked up, and for a moment Barney felt quite frightened at the ferocious scowl on his face, and was glad to be high up out of his reach. Should he have played a trick on Stig? Perhaps he didn't have what the grown-ups call a sense of humor. Did Stigs have sense of humors? But when Stig made out who it was sitting above him, his face suddenly changed. His big white teeth showed in a broad grin. He waved both his arms over his head and he jumped about in the bottom of the pit to show how pleased he was. Have a carrot, Stig, called Barney. For you, he said, pointing to Stig. To eat, he added. Good for your teeth, he said, making biting movements. Stig leaped at the carrots as they swung past, caught them, looked at them closely, smelled them, and put one in his mouth and crunched it. He looked up at Barney, smiling with his mouth full, to show that he liked his present, then made signs which clearly meant that Barney was to come down. Well, I'm not going to jump this time, said Barney, and this string's too thin to climb down. Going round, he said, making circling movements with his arms. He got off his perch and walked a long way round the top of the pit to the shallow end where he had got out the night before. It was more difficult finding his way to Stig's den along the floor of the pit than it had been finding his way out the night before. The dump looked quite different, more cheerful, with the sunlight pouring down through the golden autumn leaves and the ash and sycamore seeds twiddling down from the trees on top. But the tail of the aeroplane was only part of a farm machine, and the ship's helm was a broken cartwheel. There was a bicycle too, just a rusty frame with bits of rake hanging onto it. Never mind, he'd found something much more interesting, and he'd seen it and spoken to it in broad daylight. A real live Stig, and he was going to visit him. That's if he could find his way among the giant nettles. Okay. So let me stop sharing my screen. So I hope you all enjoyed reading the class key text with me today. And please remember to find any confusing words that you have found in the class key text today and put them on Tapestry with the definitions so I can see of what you found confusing to read. Thank you very much for listening today. I hope to see you all on the next class text video. Bye.